Welcome to episode 2 of Quick Tips for your DJI Mini 4 Pro. My goal with these quick tips videos is to help you understand all of the features of your drone with as little talking as possible. So let's get right to it. Now, the first feature today that I'd like to help you better understand is subject scanning. If you enjoy tracking subjects such as people or vehicles or boats, this is the absolute best way to do it. So I know I've already talked about subject scanning in my previous quick tips for your Mini 4 Pro video, but I wanted to mention it again with this video because I've been doing a lot of testing with it. I've wanted to see if it's more stable when you use subject scanning to choose your trackable subject versus when you swipe on the screen to select it. And I can tell you by far, subject scanning is way more reliable, and whatever you're tracking, it stays locked on better. I don't know if it has to do with the algorithm of the drone, but when you swipe on the subject, sometimes it doesn't even recognize that it's a trackable subject. Like with cars or people, sometimes it just says, sorry, this is not a car, or this is not a human. But with the subject scanning, it's already determined if it's trackable, and then you just tap on the plus and then it stays locked on. It is much more stable and much more reliable. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Use subject scanning as much as possible when you're doing active tracking. This next one is huge, at least it is for me, and it's direct file transfer. I think that's what it's called. But if you're anything like me, you tend to forget your micro SD card in your computer after you have transferred your files. You pop it out of the drone, you put it in the computer, you transfer the files, and then you take your drone, you pack it up, and you go about your way. That a micro SD card still sitting there on the computer. I do it so often that I keep an extra micro SD card in my vehicle now. But with the Mini 4 Pro, you don't have to worry about that because you don't even have to take the card out of the drone. All you have to do is connect your drone to your computer, with a USB-C cable. You don't even have to turn the drone on, and it's going to pop up on your Finder, and you're going to transfer your files that way. Like, it's so convenient. And when you're done, you unplug it and you take your drone. The card's still in there, so the next time you go fly, you don't have to experience the sadness that ensues when you get out there and you have the perfect shot and you realize that you forgot your micro SD card. So start using direct file transfer. It's very convenient. The third tip that I have for you today has to do with capturing the smoothest drone moves possible with your Mini 4 Pro. Now, yes, flying manually and capturing a beautifully smooth shot is very rewarding. You feel very accomplished when you're able to do that, but why go through all of that stress when you don't have to? Keeping your stick movement consistent is very difficult. Now, you can use the cinematic mode, which slows down everything, but even then, your fingers are always going to make little adjustments, little movements, and if it's a long shot, your thumbs are going to get tired, your fingers are going to get tired, and so it's not going to be consistent. It's never, ever consistent. Then you can also use spotlight mode, which is kind of nice with the focus tracking. Use spotlight, choose a subject, and then you can do pretty smooth things that way, but that's not always consistent. Sometimes that loses a subject that you have it locked onto. If you haven't been already, start using waypoints for everything, you guys. Use waypoints to capture consistently smooth shots. So position your drone, position the gimbal at the angle that you want it, enable your waypoints by hitting the little sideways S over there, and then hit your C1 button to set your first position. Move the drone to the next position, change your gimbal angle to however you want it, and then hit the C1 button again and do that however many times you need to set up the smoothest shot available. Start the mission. Let the drone do the work, you guys. Let it move through the sky with unwavering precision. It's one and done, and there's no stress for you, and the shot comes out perfect every single time. Use waypoints as much as possible. It's the greatest feature that's ever been brought to a drone. Have you ever had issues with birds getting a little bit too close to your drone? I know a lot of people do. I have quite a bit, actually, especially when I'm flying downtown here. The pigeons get a little upset. And then also we have a lot of these gulls around. They're not seagulls. They're some kind of gulls. I don't know, terns or whatever. But when I'm flying anywhere near the city landfill, they are very aggressive towards drones. So I hopped online, I did a little bit of research, and I found this tip from a fellow YouTuber named Brett Conyers, and I think it's worth sharing for those of you who fly around birds. So get yourself a roll of this red reflective tape, you know, that kind that people use when their taillight gets broken or something and they need to cover that hole and it needs to be reflective. So get some of that red tape, place pieces of it on your drone all over as much as possible. Don't cover any of the sensors, and the birds will leave your Mini 4 Pro alone. I haven't done it yet. I just bought my roll of reflective tape, so I'm going to try it because every spring, right by my house, we get hundreds of these gulls. There's a little lake by my house, and they come here for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the spring, and they're everywhere. And I can't even fly at home because there's so many of them. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to update you in the comments if it does work for me. But I think it's a pretty inexpensive thing to try, especially if you fly around where there's a lot of birds. It does work in vegetable gardens. I know a lot of people put that in their gardens to keep the birds away, you know, from their strawberries or the raspberries and stuff like that. So it stands to reason that it would work on your drone as well. Quickshots is a feature that really is designed mostly for beginners, but they can be used by anyone at any skill level. And I think one thing that most people don't realize is that you can use Quickshots on more than just people. Like all of the tutorials out there, even myself, I've done Quickshot tutorials with just myself, you know, as the subject. They all demonstrate with a person, but you can use Quickshots with anything as your subject. All you have to do is just highlight whatever you want to highlight just by swiping on the screen, the same that you would with a person, and then run the Quickshot mission, whichever one that it is. This is a super easy way to get some cinematic aerials. Now this next one is not so much a tip, but just kind of more for your information. And I actually don't think too many people know this, so that's why I wanted to share it here. But if you look at the radar/attitude indicator here on the bottom left side of your screen, when you're in radar mode, take a look at this icon right here. You see how it's blue when I'm facing away from the drone? Watch what happens when I turn the controller to face the drone. It turns green. That's when you know that you have the best signal possible. Okay, so if you look in the lower left-hand corner of my screen here, you can see that myself, that's the little blue dot, is blue. And that's because the drone is behind me. I'm facing the camera. But watch what happens when I turn the controller and point it directly at the drone. Boom, green. Right there, see? Isn't that cool? So that just tells you that you have a really strong signal between the controller and your drone. So even if you vary it just a little bit, you can see that it turns from green to blue. So you know that it has a perfect connection when it's facing directly at the drone. So yeah, so it's really nice to have that feedback. The Mini 4 Pro brought us AR settings for the first time in a mini drone. And it does kind of sound like a gimmick at face value, but I can tell you that having that little virtual H on the screen that shows you where your home point is has been incredibly valuable. Knowing where you are in relation to the drone is very important, especially if you're flying in an area where you're not familiar with the surroundings, you know, you're not quite sure of the landmarks. Seeing that H brings a whole lot of comfort. So turn on the AR features in the settings. The return to home beacon is kind of cool. It looks cool, but I really don't find it that useful. I know that the drone is going to be safe on its auto return to home. So I do think that's maybe a little bit unnecessary, but it is kind of cool. The last and the most important tip that I have for you all today, at least in regards to getting the best looking footage possible, is to start recording everything in DLog-M. And I've said it before in other tutorials, but do not be afraid to record in that 10-bit color profile. It is so much better, and it is incredibly easy to color, you guys. I'll show you here just in a few seconds in CapCut. I like CapCut. It's my favorite, absolutely free editing program. Anybody can learn it. Anybody can use it. And the steps are going to be about the same for any editing program that you use. So all you have to do is import your clip. Here I have a simple flyaway clip that was recorded in DLog-M. Find the adjustments, or sometimes it's called the Lumetri color tab. Sometimes, I don't know what the other names for it are, but find the tab in your editing software where you can change these settings right here. And then all you have to do, increase the contrast to your liking, increase the saturation, and most of the time, that's all you have to do. You know, you can mess with the brightness a little bit, you can mess with the white balance just to kind of tune it in to the way that you want it to look, but overall, the contrast and saturation is where you're going to get most of the work done. It takes literally seconds to edit DLog-M footage. So start recording in that if you're not. And then you can also use HLG. I know some people like to use HLG, but honestly, I don't think there's a need for that because DLog-M is so much better. Do you have more questions about the Mini 4 Pro? If you do, ask away down in the comments, and your question might end up in my next Mini 4 Pro quick tips video. If you want to see all of my favorite drone and content creation gear that I use here for the channel, for my real estate work, for anything that I use with my drones or my cameras, check my affiliate links in the video description. I just updated it this week with some of my newest favorite tech products, and I know you're going to find something you really need there as we get closer to the best season of flying, the spring. The spring is the best time. Click that thumbs up if I provided you with anything of value today. Watch this video right here next for something that's really going to make you think. Thank you for watching the entire video today, everyone. I appreciate you so much for doing that. Have a great day, and as always, fly safe and fly smart.